An old crone once asked if I fear death, the kind of fear that fills your gut like a meal you could not digest. What was I to say? Death is so terribly final, while life is full of possibilities. At the time I shook my head and smiled, but I am certain that her ancient eyes could see right through me. Wisdom comes with age, after all, does it not? I was born and raised in a household where empty glass bottles were a common sight. Father was fond of a drink, but I have never looked upon him as a bad man. He gambled and brawled, but has never raised a fist at any of his kin. Nay, never has he wronged us. Alas, the Reaper came for him one winter night and took him in his sleep. He was a Knight of the Rabbit back in the day, where the Order stood proud within the erect walls of Daramere. I always envied him. Some nights when he came home from the pub, he sat me atop his knee and told tales. Tales of the war of the two emperors. Tales of war and chivalry. I was proud to call myself his son. The holy men came from the local parish to offer a canonist burial. Mother followed some years later, and thus I inherited my family's humble homestead as the eldest son. I suppose I could have stayed, be wed to a country lass, and raise a family of me own. I could have tended to the cattle and till fields of wheat and rye, until those very fields became my grave. There is indeed honour in living such an honest life. Aye, but 'twas not the honour I seek. I sold the land, cattle, and various valuables to an affluent family. Once I managed to muster enough coin, I spent it all. I bought a half-decent set of armour, a lame gelding, and lands. With that, I set out, my body adorned by old mail and rusted plates. I was merry at first, as merry as one could be. Pretty barmaids plied me with ale, and charitable small folk fed me at their tables, let me play with their children, and offered lodging for the night. There is so much kindness in this world, for those who look in the right places. On nights where none could be found, I spent my last pennies on cheap watered-down ale and stale booze. I slept in stables. I slept beneath trees. I slept by the highway and by the pond, and wherever else you could imagine. Many a time, life proved a struggle. But despite that, I was content. My fortunes changed for the better when a band of questing knight-errants took me into their ranks. They were rough men from all walks of life. I saw no shame in selling my blade for a good cause. And that I did. With my new brothers in arms, I found adventure around every corner. Not in the way you'd expect, however. Expanding one's personal borders is an adventure on its own, I declare. They taught me how to hold a blade properly. They told me how to ride. They told me how to face terror like a man. They taught me how to be like my father. Such a life was not as profitable as you might expect. We were paid for small jobs, of course, but what seemed to be a decent sum of coin was not so decent when you have to split it among numerous lads. Our chance at glory came when it was time to face the infernal scourge that invaded the Isle of Arcus. Alongside the united armies of the Descendants, we fought and we bled on the battlefield. During the conflict, I have saved enough coin for a proper set of armour and a respectable steed. I was dubbed the Jackalope Knight, due to the antlers that adorn my helmet, no doubt. Tragedy struck when we set up camp by a small village, only a short distance from Cloud Temple. Some savage snuck in at night and untied our horses from their posts. And of course, they ran off into the boglands. One of the lads caught up to the horse thief, but ultimately she managed to escape with a mace-inflicted injury. I was sent out to go after the horses, alongside one of the new squires. Little did we know, that thieving cunt got our entire rabble to ambush the camp. By the time we returned, empty-handed, there was nothing left but burnt-down tents and blood-stained grass. Our brothers' lifeless corpses were stacked into a wee, neat pile, burning, being roasted like supper. Despite the misfortune, I consider myself lucky. A survivor. The squire and I went on our separate ways. He to his kin, and I to the fray. I know not what God has in store for me. I know not what the future holds. But one day, small folk will sing ballads of Sir William Buckfort, the jackalope. Until then, I shall ride with courage.